A man in Tokyo taught local crows to swoop in and steal money. Holy! And from ATMs! We'll be watching Casual Geographic how crows gave Earth's biggest city the middle finger. Come, motherfucker. Sheesh! That's a chat crow over there.
I love you. I love you.
I love you too.
Do you have any idea how stressful a street war with birds would be? No, you don't. Because
It's not in my area, but yeah, I do.
you don't live in Tokyo. Tokyo has a gang problem. The problem is the members aren't human and can fly. At one point, there were more than 36,000 crows crowding the eastern capital, thanks to the massive amounts of trash produced by the city each year. Crows are basically monkeys minus thumbs, but with unlimited airtime, and as corvids, along with others like ravens, jackdaws, and magpies, make up the smartest group of things with wings on the planet. Smart enough to use
They're
cars
very
as
smart.
nutcrackers, only to collect when the walk sign's on, and smart enough to memorize garbage routes for different parts of the city, just to snatch trash before the workers do. But a habitual feather menace won't just wait for you to trash it, as Tokyo crows have robbed people to steal their loot. The bird called Garasu has bloodied the faces of school children while trying to make off with candy, and have even broken into classrooms to raid lunchboxes. They'll also storm zoos for
They are the Yakuza of the streets, holy shiz.
a living lunch, often in the form of kidnapping baby prairie dogs and ducklings. Not to mention they'll
not the ducklings, not the babies.
attack livestock, pecking at the udders and causing cuts that can lead to infection. That is if they don't just bleed out. In 20
They're a menace, man. Some cultures view them as bad luck, and some cultures think that they're good luck, which is kind of interesting. How do we view crows over here? Invasive species, flying rats, city poopers, and the cow noises, the caw noises. However, we do acknowledge that they're very smart. Well, because of their strength in multiplying and the large numbers of crows, mostly in the West Malaysia, they're treated as public pests. So the government took the direct approach of shooting them. I know a lot of people don't like calling the animals, even though they are invasive species, it's not the crows' fault. Of course, we have groups condemning to this action, but well, they're a lot. A lot of times they spread diseases and pollution around. Well, but feel free to share your thoughts on other alternatives we could take. Who knows that your area have good crow management.
In 2017, Tokyo's government received over 600 complaints of civilians thrashed by the aerial urbanite, with most coming in the spring, their nesting season. Which brings another problem. Crows nesting in utility poles have caused blackouts, and using fiber optic cables as material has brought down entire broadband networks. One time even shutting down high-speed bullet train service in Akita. Hundreds of millions in yen are spent each year removing nests, with the Hokuriku Electric Company stripping 15,880 in 2018. Yet
Before this, crows were in cemeteries making nests because cemeteries are closed off and there's no their predator over there. But now, nowadays, they be like, no, I want electric poles more. They look more delicious. They look more livable. Who cares? A little bit of electrotherapy won't hurt anyone. I don't know if there's a little bit of electricity running through those poles, but I think they are, even though it's a little bit. I know, I'm just a fox.
somehow the crows seem to shake it off. How? Well, because 180 in 2018. Yet somehow the crows seem to shake it off. How? Well, because the crows started making decoy dummy nests to lead them away from the real ones. Crows and Tokyoites have been beefing for years, but it didn't escalate until a certain event in 2001, when one crow decided to dive bomb a man while he was playing golf. That man was Governor Shintaro Ishara, and he swiftly declared conflict on the corvids, with promises of changing Japan's national dish to crow pie.
What the? Before this, the people with power doesn't even care about the crow management or even their garbage management. And I think that Japan has a really good sanitary management though, however, but for some reason there's a lot of crows. Maybe because their garbage is out in the open, maybe? How do you fix this problem, you know? But yeah, before this it was only the civilians that got the short end of the stick, but now the crows got to a powerful figure and they declared war. How dare you disturb my golf session? You die. In Minecraft.
Then it's been on site and flight, with the government trying everything to combat a vindictive air terrorist, employing hawk mercenaries to try to fight fire with feathers, and even installing
Mercenaries!
beehives in the heart of Ginza, so the Gimbachi can give the crows a taste of arguably even more of a flying crash out. But one thing about Japan, you don't with the Yakuza, and these air gangsters have been testing people in ways arguably no other city animal ever has.
Won't they have a lot of poop on the streets with that many crows? Yeah, for some reason I'm very afraid of birds pooping on my head. Every time a bird flies above my head, I'm gonna be like looking at it so many times. Just to get that a bomb suddenly dropped on my head. Hiya, stinky bomb.
Humanity's hubris, testing people in ways arguably no other city animal ever has. And for all humanity's hubris, this might be the one time
The
we have
ice
to eat
cream!
crow.
How dare!
And not in the way that Chiji had in mind. So how did a bird manage
They got the ice cream. They know that it's the best tasting vanilla
time we have
ever.
to eat crow? And not in the way that Chiji had in mind.
Damn! Look at that swoop.
So how did a bird manage to humble a nation the most since the Emu War of 32? Because at least emus are damn near dinosaur size.
They're
Well,
big.
like almost everything else, it started with our garbage. Tokyo produced 3.52 million metric tons of trash in 2001, and in 1994, the government switched from black plastic bags for curbside pickup to semi-see-through calcium carbonate options. The intent was to reduce environmental impact, but a consequence was the scavenge happy could now see what was in the bags and had a much easier time finding takeout. In recent years, Tokyo has
Use black garbage bags.
seen a rise in bears and boars commuting into the city for trash, and wild macaques have continued to be a problem. But according to a wildlife management study, out of the 10 major invasive species, it was crows that caused the highest percentage of harm, and it was also crows that people were most in favor for lethal measures against. The gag is, crows in Tokyo aren't invasive, people just hate them off principle. But if just liking trash was the only
That's a
barrier
lot.
of entry, Japan would have more problems than a
They are native in Japan, sheesh. But that's a lot of crows. Did Japan switch back to their black garbage bags? I wonder.
principle. But if just liking trash was the only barrier of entry, Japan would have more problems than a flying black air force. The problem is, crows had a counter for almost everything thrown at them. First is that crows have great memories and hold grudges. In 2006, remember that year, the University of Washington conducted an experiment where 7 crows were trapped and eventually released by people wearing scary masks. Not too long after, study leader Professor John Marsloff was strolling the campus with a mask when 47 out of the 53 crows he encountered violently rejected to his presence. Each following year, the number of vindictive on-site campus crows grew and peaked in 2013. Even though at this point, they'd only see the mask twice a year for a few hours, and especially even though most of the crows on the offensive weren't even alive at the start of the study. It wasn't until September 2023 that the harassment eventually stopped, and it probably wasn't even that they forgot, just that it took 17 years for them to drop the vendetta. There's also the implication that crows can communicate so well that even those born after the study can instantly tell which masks meant bad. So yeah, that memory is good for more than just garbage routes. You do wrong by a crow, you're screwed for a very long time, which Tokyoites have learned the stressful way. One man, Hiroshi Takaku, saw a couple of his colleagues being attacked by a few crows and fended them off by swinging his belt. The crows backed off, but the next day, they returned to work to find hundreds of crows posted up on their building of business, waiting for them. So safe to say, conventional extermination doesn't really work on an animal that can learn the look of the workers doing it and will mob them on site. They also tried traps where they bait the crows with food like lard and then gas the captured crows with carbon monoxide. But not only was that method way more costly than it was worth, they didn't expect a group of goth tweeties named Murder to turn death into a life lesson. Crows have funerals, but not the kind that you think where they mourn the dead. In fact, they're more likely to okay, anyway. When a crow sees another dead crow, it'll often call out to the surrounding birds, and they'll all gather around the fallen member to investigate the cause of death. A study even found that the
cause of death! Please tell your cousin, your nephew, your auntie, uncle, your family, everyone come here. Look at this. Who killed him? We need to investigate and we will exact revenge.
We will mess that person's hairdo that they spent 2 hours working on.
of the deceased triggers activation in the part of the brain associated with higher order decision making. Because crows understand cause and effect enough to realize that a threat to one is a threat to all, so they'll recruit others to investigate the cause of death. It's why crows will sometimes avoid a field for years if they see a past tense crow there once. The same study also found that crows will harass any human seen near the corpse, likely pinning the death on them, but will also do the same if they see a human with a hawk, probably realizing that a hawk and a human can equal a bad time. So mass crow killings barely put a dent in the population. And speaking of hawks, they weren't as effective as the government hoped, as although big enough hawks will murk crows, crows will use their numbers to effectively mob birds of prey and chase them off. You see where I'm going with this, right? These Flyinsteins had a counter for everything. The Tokyo terrors would avoid areas with traps, and any crow deaths were likely reported on and adjusted for by the greater crow community. And let me just remind you that crows were out here making decoy nests to slow their human ops down. Even with the crow cavalry falling from its near 40,000 population peak, in 2010 there were still an estimated 20,000 running the naked city, causing the government to get even more creative. This is how bad it got. Tokyo had researchers studying more than 10,000 different crow sounds and isolating the specific sound they make in response to a predator, and playing those calls on loudspeakers near trash sites. Basically what pilot whales do to orcas, Japan had to resort to with a bird. But really, the only thing that made a difference was regulating the very problem that caused it. People started covering their trash with blue protective tarps, and Utsunomiya University professor Shuei Sugira helped develop a special yellow garbage bag that the crows couldn't see through. And it had to be a very specific yellow or else it wouldn't work. Many places—
What? They need to distribute that to the whole city, man. Aside from the crows' own kin getting disconnected from their current server, they also know the impending death of some people. Either they can sniff the distinct chemical sense in late illnesses, or they really recognize the routine of humans too. Imagine person A has a crow stalking them every day from its electric pole for whatever reason. Maybe it just likes the rotten beans, the rotten canned beans this person often throws in their garbage. Who knows? Then something unusual happens. The crow heard a wee wah sound, and then after a few more days, humans started gathering in that house that serves rotten beans. The rotten bean person isn't throwing their beans anymore. The crow may stay nearby just out of curiosity, or it sees this as an unusual gathering of humans to be a threat to its food source. Maybe they want to steal its rotten bean. It's in standby to see what is going on. And well, they are also scavengers, so yeah, spooky. We are not on their list of foods in the menu typically, but most of the time they're just scanning for threats.
Many places like restaurants in Ginza pivoted to having their garbage collected at night, instead of the crow's prime time of late morning. But by far, the most effective measure was just making less trash in the first place, and Tokyo's 3.52 million metric tons of trash in 2001 was cut down to 2.45 million in 2024. Wow. Eventually, the crow numbers would start to chip away.
Damn! Look at all these!
In 2024. Eventually, the crow numbers—
This is scary. This is scary. Imagine you waking up in the morning and be like having your coffee or something, and you open the door and be like, oh, it's another crowful day. Very sorrowful. Very so crowful. Adumtis. That's a bad joke, I know.
Would start to chip away, and in 2026, the population is only 20% of its peak 2 decades ago. That was the only way a trash terrorist was going to be beat, as bird experts noted that the traps would only work on younger, dumber crows, and that the birds even figured out how to work around the protective tarps. But some experts worry that the war isn't over, that it's only a matter of time before the next wave of street-smart crow fiends rise up again. Crows are just too smart to be defeated by conventional methods, because crows are not a conventional bird. In fact, they might have the most unconventional—
How in the world is it standing like that? Huh? It's asserting dominance, indeed.
Conventional form of self-defense.
Looks
Crows
like
are
a
the biggest
gorilla.
trolls in the animal kingdom, and I don't think it's close. So what if I told you the form of self-defense? Crows are the biggest trolls in the animal kingdom, and I don't think it's close. So what if
Hey.
I told you the rage bait strategic? Let me explain. crows are omnivore opportunists, and a lot of those opportunities come from scavenging. But scavenging can put them up against much bigger, more powerful predators. So crows will often be so annoying that they force the competition to rage quit. And they'll do this by pulling feathers, and they'll do this to some of the largest birds of prey. Stellar sea
Yoinking
eagles
your
are big enough
hair.
to catch an AI accusation, but a crow will still tail check them. And in this video, you start to see why, with this crow pulling up on 2 turkey vultures and repeatedly baiting one of them until the vulture finally has enough and makes it the bystander's problem, allowing the crow access to the bird back. An even more extreme example was a crow arriving at a fresh carcass and waiting for stronger vultures to tear into the hide he couldn't. And with the gift box open, the crow immediately started pulling tails and testing patience, until eventually the troll bird instigated a vulture brawl, during which he snuck in and stole him a piece. It seems the habitual
The friendly fire goes hard. Of course, you can't see anything behind your butt when your tail is gonna get pulled, but yeah, there's this little black thing. I know it's short, but it's just beside you, bro.
line stepping is a way for the crow to counter brawn with brain. But crows will use troll tendencies on anything from seagulls to eagles, from deer to dogs. Where there's one
Look at that! No, not the doggo tail! This thing, it's already pulling the whole wool! No!
animal that always seems to fall for the rage bait. The number of
No, not the
catfights to
panda.
dogs. Well, there's one animal that
Panda
always
fuck.
seems to fall for the rage bait. The number of catfights provoked by crows is actually insane. I don't know what that crow said to that cat to make him crash out like that, but surely
know.
someone's mother was involved. And then they're always right there to enjoy the violent fruits of their instigation. Crows don't want
How? Why in the world is the cat fighting the other cat?
his mother was
Huh?
insane. I don't know what that crow said to that cat to make him crash out like
What did you say? Dang, crows are OP. We're doomed, guys. We're doomed. Crows will take over other than AI. AI, to the side.
that, but surely someone's mother was involved. And then they're always right there to enjoy the violent fruits of their instigation. Crows don't want peace, they thrive off problems.
Not
Just
the
to hover
poor
above
cat.
it like a boxing promoter. Now it's possible the crows recognize the cats as a threat, and this is a 900 IQ play to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Why? Why, bro? Why, cat? The crow was just behind it. They even looked back at the crow, man, huh? They just wanna fight.
But 2 cats with 1 crow. It would make sense for crows to turn cats on each other, especially if they have fledglings or a
They
nest
know.
nearby. But crows are also smart enough to just do stuff for fun, and they're smart enough to use tools to do it. So I could 100% see crows using live cats as tools for their own amusement. Especially since in a lot of these clips, the crows don't look like they have anything to gain. No food, no agenda, just free will and
No,
love.
the bigger
Game.
mooding.
So what do you think? Anti-predator measures, resource access strategy, or just pure trolling? And who's to say it's
They're
not
the
all
trolls.
three? But whatever it is, it does unlock a new level of the crow's IQ. Theory of mind is the ability to recognize that other beings have thoughts and mental states that can be used to predict or even manipulate behavior. Here's a quick test. Let's say person
Wow.
A puts a sandwich in the office refrigerator, but then person B comes along and takes the sandwich out the fridge and puts it in a pencil drawer. At lunchtime, where's the first place person A would look? If you have theory of mind, you'd say the fridge because that's where A left it, and you know that they don't know that person B is a sandwich thieving waste of carbon. Now, if you're thinking, well, obviously no shit. Well, congratulations. You have the emotional bandwidth of at least a toddler. But crows have shown advanced
Toddler.
levels of theory of mind just by knowing
They
that if they
know.
frustrate a cat long enough, the cat will eventually take it out on a fellow cat. Another
Why,
example is
though?
crows will often hide food, but will also pretend to hide food if they know they're being watched, making a big show out of it and even making sounds associated with being happy, just to keep the food stuff in their beak and hide it for real later. And it's the crows that do the stealing that are most likely to perform theft insurance, meaning they
Oh
can put
dang,
themselves
the Oreo. They have good taste, bro. They have good taste. I gotta hand it to them.
do the stealing that are most likely to perform theft insurance, meaning they can put themselves in the mind of another crow and act accordingly. Now, I don't want to act like this is a super complex thing. Like, squirrels will do the same misdirection to protect their nuts. We're just gonna
Their
ignore that
nuts.
they often forget where they put them for real, and that ADHD builds forests. But of course, this got the seagulls' attention, and with all their biblical greed, they flew over to steal again. And while the seagulls were left with the stick the crow was posturing as food, the crow was able to spin back and take the fries, their pride, and the W.
Damn.
Along with theory of mind,
The
crows were also
fries.
able to pass Aesop's test. In this one, the animal
Dang,
would need the
Aesop.
foresight to understand that they can reach a treat
The
in a small
fable.
tube by dropping stones to raise the water level high enough. Raccoons were able to pass the test, as were apes, although they got creative, with an orangutan spitting water into the tube to
Hey.
grab the prize and a chimpanzee just peeing in it. When it was the crow's turn to
Hey.
step to the plate, not only did they
That's
pass,
even
they
worse.
knew enough to use solid sinking objects over those that float, and understood that using the same logic with a tube full of sand made no sense. That performance put the crow on par with a 5 to 7-year-old child, which again is pretty solid for an animal with a brain the weight of 3 nickels. Interestingly, crows did not pass the mirror test, and save for 2 European magpies, corvids in general didn't seem to recognize the bird in the mirror. But they do seem to understand the concept of reflection, with Caledonian crows able to find hidden food that was only visible by looking at a mirror from a certain angle. But forget everything I just said. Did you know crows can understand analogy? Being able to clock an analogy like bird is to air what fish is to, water, was believed to be a strictly human trait, but studies show that primates like chimpanzees and even monkeys like baboons can learn the concept. So how do we figure out crows can too? I'm gonna explain, but first, you gotta lock in. Okay? Lock in.
Okay.
Alright, let's do it.
Go ahead.
So this test, led by Edward Wasserman of the University of Iowa, started off pretty simple. First, they trained 2 hooded crows to match the correct card to the sample card. They'd have 3 cards and 2 cups. The card in the middle would be the sample card, and it would be something like 2 blue circles, and the 2 cards would be on top of the 2 cups, and one card might be something like 1 red and 1 blue circle, and the other one could be a square and a triangle. See, now the crow would have to understand that the correct card would be the one that also has 2 circles, and picking the right one would reveal a juicy mealworm at the bottom of the cup. The other cup contains nothing, because wrong answers deserve nothing. Another example would be if the middle card had 2 pink squares, and option 1 had a pink circle and a pink triangle, and option 2 had 2 green triangles, then the correct answer would be the one that also has all pink. The crows passed easily. But that wasn't the experiment. That was the warm-up. Because I just described identity matching to sample, IMTS. The real test would be if they could solve relational matching to sample, or RMTS. RMTS basically means if the sample pair is AA and your options are BB and CD, then the right answer would be BB. You would pick BB. If the sample was CD and your options were EF and GG, you'd pick EF. See, now that's analogical thinking, because AA and BB aren't literally the same, but they are in terms of the relationship the letters in the pair have to each other. So right here, the crow would have to understand that because the sample card has 2 different samples, then the card with the reward would also have 2 different shapes. Nice. Alright, try it again. Bueno. Now you want to hear the kicker? They were not trained to do this. They got this on the first try. They went straight from IMTS to analogical thinking, completely on their own. We're still talking about crows here. And Wasserman said it. It'd be one thing if they were
Won't they have like a good sense of smell, however? Like, I know they are very smart, but they have a good sense of smell too, though.
brute force into learning, but the fact that they were able to reason their way into the right answer on the fly, you almost have to reevaluate how smart you think they are. And that's why you're not ready for the crow revolution. Their greatest weapon is their mind, and you can get wrecked purely off of pattern recognition. Lisa Joyce was attacked by crows during a 4th of July celebration in Vancouver. What was weird was, out of the hundreds of people outside, Lisa was the only victim. The harassment only got worse to the point where she had to change her commute because a literal murder would be waiting for her outside on her way to work.
What did you do
After
to the
weeks
crow?
of avian abuse, she stumbled across a local Facebook support group with women talking about their crow trauma, and other than, being Tweety's target practice, Lisa noticed all the women had one thing in common. They all had long, blonde hair. As for why blonde bias, well, you might find your answer in Seattle. That's where science writer and fellow blonde Lynn Peoples was jogging when she took multiple bird strikes to the back of the dome. Later in her jog, she saw a man, probably having a mental episode, absolutely crashing out at the birds at the park, chasing and kicking at them. Birds that included crows. He also had a long
So he has a long blonde hair.
ponytail. Guess what color it was?
Well, it's obviously blonde. However, the crows are bad at this. They can't tell a male and a female apart. Huh?
You can catch heat from a murder as a bystander, and your only options are to move, dye your hair, or I guess you could wait in the house for 17 years like a cicada. Crow hate crimes have gotten so
Just dye
common,
the
someone
hair.
developed an app to track crow attacks, and crow tracks quickly gained thousands of reports. As much as I love crows, I can understand why people are terrified of them. They're the most human bird on the planet, and that is really uncomfortable to some people. Well, let me make it worse.
That's so
Because
big.
corvids like crows, but especially ravens,
That's a big
have had a
crow.
relationship with wolves that is eerily familiar. You see, corvids will scavenge off wolves' leftovers, but often it's the flying dry snitch that leads the pack to them in the first place. In return, the wolves seem to tolerate the birds picking at the meat once the wolves have ripped it open. But it's not just a business relationship, as ravens and crows have been seen playing with wolves in Yellowstone, sometimes grabbing sticks to play tug-of-war, or sometimes even flying above the wolves to get them to jump at them. The birds seem to especially favor playing with wolf pups, and naturalists watching swear by corvids having emotional bonds with specific members of the pack. Not to mention Caledonian crows, you know, the ones that pass the tube test, can not only use tools, but they'll build them, like with multiple steps. Like if you give a Caledonian a box with food and a bunch of sticks, but none of the sticks are long enough to reach the prize, the crow has the presence of mind to combine multiple sticks to retrieve the treat. That kind of compound tool use basically puts them at primate tier. So let's see here, able to use tools, hold grudges, wage straight up war, befriend wolves, understand analogies. Yeah, either they're the humans of birds or we're the crows of primates. And that's probably the biggest reason why people fear them. For this video, drink water, hug your mother. I for one welcome our imminent avian overlords.
It kind of got skipped there, huh?
People fear them. For this video, drink water, hug your mother. I for one welcome our imminent avian overlords, just for anyone watching. Acknowledge your father, and I'ma see y'all in the next one.
Acknowledge your father was so random. Did he ever said this before, or did he just add it more? A little cheeky ad. Wait, it sounds like those rubber duckies. The rubber duckies. The USB cable, man. Oh wow, now crows are playing chess. Haha. Let's see the comments. I have a habit of nodding to crows whenever I see one. That's so cute. Just a small "Hey, what's up?" nod. Couple years ago, I noticed when the crows in my neighborhood see me walk past, they would start nodding at me. Oh, that's so cute. That's the most precious thing ever. Of course it is. They remember, guys. Don't treat the crows badly. Oh no, our government, man. Oh no. Over here, I think we have the small crows, not the big ones. The big ones are in a different area. But the crows are getting in my house too, along with the sparrows, man. Fun fact, in Sweden, they are teaching crows how to pick up trash. Whoa, that's cool! There are trash cans where they can throw away things like cigarette butts into it and get a nut. Dang, these little goobers are so smart. A man in Tokyo taught local crows to swoop in and steal money. Holy! And from ATMs! And deliver it to his window in exchange for food. Damn! They learned that they could show up anytime for their favorite meal if they come with money. He got caught because it became enough of a consistent problem that the police, after a number of reports, looked into where they were going and after they stole the money. Might be worth noting in the video. Sheesh, they're so smart though. I know doing crime is bad, but dang, these crows are so smart.